Hey guys, glad you could join us. Today is Thursday, January 14th. We're going to pick up reading today in the Land of Stories on page 265, I believe. Okay, so Alex and Connor have escaped. They are in the fairy kingdom. Masks up, please, gentlemen. And they're trying to find a unhappy, crying fairy, which they kind of anticipate being very difficult because fairies are usually very happy people. Mr. Finnan, please. Thanks. Alex stopped walking. Hey, wait, do you hear that? She said. Tiny sniffling sounds came from close by. The twins looked around but couldn't see quite where it was coming from. What is that? Connor asked. He looked down beside him and had to blink a few times to make sure that he wasn't imagining what he saw. No, this can't be real. This is too easy. Nothing has been this easy. If you need to go back to your tables, you may. Thank you. What are you talking about? Alex asked him. Okay, and Connor turned his shoulder to see what she was looking at, and sitting on a rock on the other side of their path was a fairy. And the fairy was crying. She was only a few inches tall and had big blue wings similar to a butterfly's. She had dark hair and a purple dress made of leaves and shoes made out of flower buds. Her tiny hands were clasped around her big eyes. The tears were running down her face. The twins just stood there and stared down at her. They were afraid their minds were playing tricks on them. They both wanted to see this so badly. "What are you looking at?" the fairy said to the twins in a tiny, high-pitched voice. "We're sorry," Alex said. "Why are you crying?" Connor jerked his head toward his sister, and she knew what he was thinking. "Who cares? Get a tear!" That was all that was on his mind. "That's none of your business," the fairy said, and sobbed some more. "Forgive me," Alex said. "I can tell that you're upset about something, and I wouldn't be myself if I didn't ask if there's anything that I could do to help." "That's sweet. Thank you," the fairy said, changing her attitude. "I'm just having a really rough day, that's all." Connor kept trying to grab the vial from his sister's hand, but she wouldn't let him take it. "What's your name?" Alex asked the fairy. "Trix," the fairy said. "Hello, Trix. My name is Alex, and this is my brother Connor," Alex said. "Would you like to talk about what's troubling you?" Connor was shocked. She was actually more interested in helping this fairy than collecting one of her tears. "My trial is in a few minutes, and I'm scared," Trix said. "Your trial?" Connor asked. "Did you kill somebody?" "Of course not," said Trix. "I used magic on another fairy, and now the fairy council may ban me from Fairy Kingdom." "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that," Alex said. "What did you do to the other fairy?" Connor asked. "I turned her wings into prune leaves," the fairy said, and broke down crying some more. "It was only for a moment, and I turned them right back, but he was provoking me. He just kept teasing me about my size." "They're going to ban you from the entire kingdom just from turning someone's wings into leaves for a couple of seconds?" Connor asked. "They've been very strict ever since the enchantress put the curse on Sleeping Beauty," Trix said. "The fairy council believes that every fairy is a representative of their order and they should act as such." "Those are pretty high expectations," Alex said. "I can't leave the fairy kingdom," Trix cried. It would be so lonely, and I hate being alone. I don't have many friends to begin with. Alex let Trix use the corner of her shirt to dry her tears. Connor turned bright red watching his sister dispose of the tears so carelessly. He had to make the fairy produce more. Being banned would really be terrible though, now wouldn't it? Connor added. You'd probably have to live in an old bird's nest in the dwarf's forest and be chased by wolves and witches every day, and that's only if an ogre doesn't capture you in a jar and barbecue you first. Oh! Trix became hysterical, crying at this. Connor, what is wrong with you? Alex yelled. Connor snatched the vial from her hand and collected a tear from Trix's face just as it dripped off her chin. Alex gave him a dirty look. Would you like for us to go with you to your trial? Asked Alex, leaning down to eye level with Trixie for emotional support. Yes, I would like that, Trix said. That's so kind of you. Well, I know what it feels like to think that the whole world is against you. We'd better get going. You're right. We better get going. I don't want to be late. Trix flew into the air and fluttered down the path. The twins walked after her. Alex, are you crazy? Connor said. We've got a tear. Let's get out of here. We're the only people in the world who this fairy has, Alex said. We are going to be good people and help her out. Ugh, Connor grunted with frustration. Helping this fairy isn't going to take away bad memories that you have from school, Alex. Alex ignored him and followed Trix down the path. Connor followed, sulking the entire way. They traveled deeper into the fairy kingdom. Everything in the distance seemed to sparkle. They thought it was a mirage at first, but the closer they got, they saw trees and grass and the path. They all shined and shimmered in the sunlight. What's up with all the glitter? Connor asked. I don't think it's glitter. I think it's magic, Alex said. They reached the heart of the kingdom and were completely bewildered by what they saw. It was like they were standing in a gigantic tropical garden with large, colorful flowers of all shapes and species. There were weeping willows all around a small pond and vines that grew across the ground and up trees. There were beautiful bridges over many streams and ponds. There were fairies everywhere. Many flew around in the air. Some just hovered above the ground, and some walked on smaller paths adjacent to the ones the twins were on. They were all different shapes, sizes, and colors. Some were taller than Alex and Connor. Some were as small as Trix, and some didn't seem to even be solid, but rather made of pure light. There were just as many male fairies as there were female. Some of the fairies wore gowns. Others' clothes were made entirely from plant materials, and some wore nothing at all. Many had made miniature homes in the branches of the trees or in mushrooms on the ground, and there were fairies who even lived underwater with colorful fish. Something about this place made Alex feel as if everything were right with the world. It gave her hope, excitement, and happiness. With every step she took, it was paradise. Have you ever seen something so beautiful in your entire life? Alex asked her brother. Not too shabby, Connor said. The Fairy Council operates in the Fairy Palace. It's just ahead, Trix said, and gestured to the twins to follow her over the pond. They, of course, followed. They walked toward a palace made entirely out of golden arches and pillars. It was completely open. There were no more than 2 walls to line each room, and all the windows were tall, but with no glass. When you live in a place as beautiful as this, who would want to keep the environment out? Bye, guys.